The silent stakeholder is every mom and dad, every husband and wife, and every son and daughter of our employees. For them, it's not a, gosh darn, I hope they come home okay. For them, it's a mandate. They're expecting their loved one to be home and in as good a condition as when they came to work.
Welcome to the Canary Report, the podcast where risk leaders, safety professionals, and operational executives come for real-world stories and smarter strategies to keep people safe. I'm your host, Michael Zell. In each episode, I sit down with exceptional leaders who are transforming how risk and safety are managed. Whether you're a leader of a nationwide EH&S program in a high-risk industry, or you champion workplace safety across 200 retail locations, this podcast is for you. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Canary Report, podcast for risk leaders, safety professionals, and operating executives to share real-world stories and smarter strategies to keep people safe. I am your host, Michael Zell, and today I am so happy to have with us Mike Place. Now, Mike is with Dakota Supply Group. He is actually in North Dakota. He is joining us from a sunny day, by the way, which is wonderful because you don't always get those. And so right now it is a beautiful sunny day in North Dakota. This gentleman is a legend, and he is a very well-respected man in this industry. I've got several people who have said, I can't believe you're doing this with Mike Place. So I'm super excited to actually have this become a reality for us. Mike comes from the wholesale distribution world over at DSG, where they have 60 locations in the Midwest. They do a lot of electrical and HVAC, plumbing, mechanical, and waterworks, and other things involving supplying of product. He's also has 2 decades with the company, which is hard to believe, sir. So you look great for a man with 2 decades of doing anything. We are really happy to hear about your journey and your passion for safety and communication, and specifically some of the things that in the moving parts of a 60-person or 60-site organization and all of the logistics and all the other things that you contend with. So thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. It's a real pleasure to be on. Looking forward to the discussion. I always love talking safety.
I love it. Well, as I always kick off, safety is a human business. It is about people. It is not about regulations or compliance. And so tell our listeners a little bit about you as a human being, family, upbringing, all of the things that you would like to share with us about who makes you the man that you are.
Sure. Well, I know, like we talked about off screen here, I feel like the luckiest man alive. I got a great wife. I got great kids. I live in a great town. I work at a great company. My football team's not half bad. So on a real personal level, I feel like I'm on a free roll 24/7, and that's a great spot to be. You know, I was a 365 days a year sports kid growing up. So I spent a lot of my time in athletics, competitions, things like that. When I went to school at NDSU, North Dakota State University, where I got my degree in human resources and business management, which ultimately led to my introduction into the industry. I did my internship through Border States Electric, who's nationally recognized player in the industry, and learned a lot there, and very much appreciate my time there, and ultimately transitioned from Border States when I moved back to Bismarck over to Dakota Supply Group, and that was in 2004. And I've been here ever since. Held a number of hats with the company, from being our training director and fleet manager to now focusing exclusively on safety. So fortunate to have held a lot of different positions, had a lot of different hats, and it's given me a great holistic understanding of our operation, what we do, where we do it, and who we do it with.
Absolutely fantastic. And I'll say that the people I speak with that have the greatest empathy and sympathy for the people that they keep safe and put programs together for are those who have done what you did, which is going through different divisions, truly learning about the trials and tribulations of these different roles. It's difficult to come in and know what you are supposed to tell people and not really know what they do. And so I commend you for really being passionate about that part of your journey. So today, how has your journey changed? I mean, it's been, a bit of time. And so you came in and you were in HR. Or were you in safety when you actually joined the company? I missed that as a leap. What was your original journey inside the company?
So I originally started off in operations as a warehouse manager.
Okay.
And that was a passion of mine just because I really enjoyed the customer interfacing side of it. So, uh, leading our warehouse, I also served point as our city desk managers. So I got a chance to have a lot of touch points with our customers to better understand the trade. So that was sort of the fuel that led me into the industry. But after being here, I just started asking questions, and if I didn't get an answer that I felt was satisfactory, uh, I would follow up. And so, in a very organic way, it just led me into some of these other roles. We recognized needs. I had some solutions and ideas, and ultimately, that's how I ended up being our training director. That happened in 2010. So the first 6 or 7 years, I was working on the operations side, and then transitioned into a corporate role. Uh, and the great thing about what I've done in the past with training or fleet or safety is it's not just HR, it's an operation thing too. So I found that no matter which position I've held, I've had great interface on all sides of the business and all segments, and that's tribal knowledge that you can't replace. I found that to be very valuable to me in my work.
It's a very interesting journey because I find that training, when you look fundamentally into what we do in the land of EHS and with turnover, a lot of our employees, it's just a reality of the forklift driver or the trucking person, or it's they're not always career choices. They're things that folks do for a while and will transition, and they do have turnover, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the reality is, when you're doing training, going and cutting your teeth in the training world probably was the best possible place for you to have gone in your career, to be then leading the safety organization, because those training modules that you create are so important, especially with turnover, right?
One of the great things about training is it's a big focus of safety. So all of the work that I did there really prepared me to hit the ground running when I came into safety. I already had uh, really good programs in place. I already understood the importance of the psychology of the worker and how help aid in retention and things of that nature. So I feel very blessed that I started in training. I'm a teacher at heart, no matter what role I will hold. So it was great to be able to get into my passion, but then be able to manifest it in different ways in different parts of the business. I've learned how to be an effective leader on fleet, on safety, continuing education, but I owe it all really to Dakota Supply Group and giving me that opportunity. They saw in me that I genuinely cared, and I'm sure that passion is going to come throughout our conversation today.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, the goal really is to make sure that our workers return home to their loved ones the same way they came to work. And to do that, you have to affect the psychology of the worker. It's not just about policy and procedure and process. It's about how we think, what we think, and when we think. So yeah, I'm excited for where my role will take me in the future because we're just biting on it now. We got a lot more room to grow.
Yeah, you work for a wonderful organization, and that is obvious not only from being there for 20 years and or 21 or however long it's been, and the passion you have for it, and you've obviously been treated very well. What does the company look like just from an ownership perspective? Is it public? Is it family owned? Is it employee owned? Like, what's your kind of your hierarchy inside the company?
Yeah, so I'm proud to say Dakota Supply Group is an employee-owned organization. We have 1,100 employee owners across 64 facilities in the Upper Midwest. We're led by Paul Kennedy, who's been a great CEO for DSG. He came on with us here, I think, in 2018, and he's outfitted us with a tremendous executive team that's really leaned into safety. And I always like to tell people that because I meet a lot of people in the safety field. And one thing that really rings true is those that have the most success have a tailwind behind them from executive leadership, people that are supporting them and communicating on their behalf and are real advocates for safety. I have that. Uh, DSG is a wonderful organization. Uh, the employee ownership element, and I don't know how far you want to get into that, but I think that's a real hidden elixir to great safety because it has the ability to add a different mindset to why you work. And my role oftentimes is to marry the safety mindset with that employee ownership mindset, because in my opinion, they're one and the same. The goals that you have as an employee owner are all aided by a great safety culture. So
It's quite interesting. I'm a founder and an owner of, CEO at least, of a company that is growing and has our challenges and has our wonderful moments and has venture capital and all the other things. But my mindset, because of being the founder and owner, is different than anybody else's. And you would expect that. But I do find that those who really feel their ownership, who've been here for a long time, who know what their equity is worth, look at things through a different lens. When you do feel like a cog in a wheel or just part of a machine, you look at things differently than when you realize that you are an owner of this place and you need to be prideful of that ownership. And that person next to you works for you and you work for them because you guys are all owners. And I think it's a really wonderful thing. I agree with you. I hadn't really thought of it from that perspective. So when you're doing that, when you're having these discussions, it's interesting because you talk about the operational mindset and then there's the heart side of the house. Now, have you had challenges with the size? Because I mean, you're a pretty decent sized organization now. You got 60 people, facility 64, I think you just said.
yep.
I had 60 written down, so you've grown by 4 since I wrote it down. Apparently,
Every
uh,
day there's an opportunity.
so how do you currently run your program? How many safety folks do you have on staff? What is the general, what does the organization look like? And then how do you execute all these things, these trainings and assessments and surveys and all the stuff that we have to do in this industry?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I'd be remiss if I didn't shine a light on all the great people that help safety be successful at DSG. Uh,
Yep.
we have a safety coordinator in every one of our branch locations that helps to lead safety at the branch level. So
Nice.
when we think about the trainings that we do, the inspections, the assessments, and all of the different safety related activities, we have somebody who serves point in every location for that. We also have behind that a regional leadership structure where our regional operation managers work with their local branches to ensure they have the right resourcing, the right time to be able to perform safety at a high level. So there's buy-in at the regional level and also at the local level for management to support that safety coordinator. My job is to put them in a position to win by giving them the right resources, the right messaging, having spot training and coaching sessions with coordinators that are either new or developing or have questions. But between the structure of local partnerships with those safety coordinators, the regional partnerships we have with our operations and general management teams, it really is an all hands on deck approach to safety. I can't say that I could signal out one position group because I can think from the C-suite group on down. Uh, every role, every position company has a role with safety. So I like to tell imagine a brand new associate that you bring on to be a warehouse worker. They're not in safety specifically, not a safety coordinator, not a manager. They still have a role to play. How they engage with the information that's given to them, how they're able to apply it, the questions that they ask. So we try to foster a culture that really empowers everybody to share their thoughts, to share their ideas, because safety is always evolving. And if you act on good information, you miss an opportunity. So so yeah, I like to think that every one of our 1,100 employees has an opportunity to elevate safety at
Yes.
DSG. My goal is to be the cheerleader, the advocate, the teacher, the trainer, the supporter, whatever hat I need to wear in the moment, I'm willing to wear. Because at the end of the day, I just want to help us win. And when I say win, what I'm really meaning is when we retire, how great is it to retire healthy and happy and vital? We all have that
Yes.
story of somebody who, when they got to retirement, all it did was lead them to an unending series of weekly chiropractic visits or what have you.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so, for all of our employee owners, I want them to get to their retirement in a position to truly maximize it. And to do that,
Such
we've got to be conscious on safety on a day in, day out basis.
such a great lens. It's interesting. I have this conversation. I mean, I feel I record a lot of these, and I enjoy having great leaders like yourself. I don't think I've ever heard somebody make that statement, and it is such a great lens to kind of put things in perspective. And often folks don't, they think of it as you're going to cut off an arm or you're going to die. And the reality is that you're right. Most of the things in safety, yes, you don't want people to electrocute themselves or cut off a limb, of course, but you also don't want somebody to do damage to themselves and still continue on with their life, but just be altered because of the unsafe practices or unsafe, protocols that they were following or not following. And so, yeah, I think that's such a great lens to look at this through. So, your safety coordinators at each facility. So, what do you have a role that you generally will assign a safety coordinator title to? Is it actually a hired person that is all they do is the safety coordination, or is it generally, and as most organizations, this is not a slight in any way, taking a specific role that is able to take that hat and kind of take point on it?
That's a good question, Mike. I would say our largest facilities, they may hire with safety as a much bigger part of their overall decision. For example, you might have smaller branches where the safety side of the activities only takes them 10 or 15 hours a month, whereas larger ones it could be 30 or 40. So depending on the size of the facility, that will inform how important safety is in the hiring decision.
Sure.
But I would say probably 80% of our safety coordinators, they do safety in addition to whatever role they were hired for. We have safety coordinators that serve as warehouse supervisors, floor managers, city desk folks, admin officials. What I really ask the branch managers to do when they're thinking about who's going to be in that role is to identify somebody who truly cares. Because you really want to find somebody in safety who's internally motivated to help other people. That altruistic mindset carries big dividends on safety because when we're left to our own devices, and I don't want to finger at anyone, but think about out in the field, like out in the construction world. We've all been to job sites where they're just rushing, they're bypassing protocols, they're just doing whatever they can to get that project done. And when you have a safety coordinator, you really want somebody who's an advocate against that type of mindset, somebody who recognizes the value of a long and healthy career, that the benefits to a healthy worker aren't just to themselves or to their family, but to all of our employees and to all of our customers. I'll leave you one just sort of melting pot question for you here, Mike. Imagine if you were an organization of 1,000 people and every year you had 20 people that were injured to a point where they weren't able to come to work or they were on some type of restriction. And let's say each one of those 20 people just lost 2 days to
Mhm.
whatever it ailed them. Well, that's 60 days for those folks. How much can
Yep.
you help your customers if you had 60
Yeah.
additional days worth of manpower to serve their needs? When we think about how can we help ourselves, how can we help the people around us, our community, our customers, it starts with being available. So I try to establish that mindset with our safety coordinators is that it's really about having a long-term focus because safety isn't an in the moment one step and you're done. It's an everyday, every step. Uh, and yeah, identifying who has these is important.
It's so funny. The thesis of Yellowbird started with my father in '08, who got retired. And I say that because he was in banking and he was at an age where he could be retired. And '08 meltdown of the banking system, of the finance system. And so it was one of these, here's your hat, what's your hurry kind of a situation, he was going to do consulting. And as most executives and leaders will say, when I retire, I want to stay in the game a little bit and do consulting and help the community, not necessarily always for money, just to something to stay active. It's amazing how many people drive Uber when they're retired just to make sure they're staying off the couch, right? And which is such a waste of talent, in my opinion, because there's so many better uses of these these people's lives. Not that there's anything wrong with driving Uber, but he didn't find any consulting work, and he didn't really have the passion for going and hustling to become a sole proprietor consultant. And so wasn't very long before he was truly retired. But I always remembered that. And 10 years later, when the Ubers of the world came out, I was thinking about the world that I'm passionate about, being in the health and safety side of the house. And I thought, if I had a platform that created an efficient way for people to consult, it would be something special. And the example you just gave, because when you look at what we do today, I just did 250 locations in 71 days. You do surveys in 250 locations in 71 days, you better be pretty darn efficient and not be having people on airplanes. And it's interesting because what you had just said with regards to the number of days when somebody gets injured and them being out, and even if they're out for 2 days and it affecting their business, we're trying to keep people off of airplanes. We're trying to keep people from having to spend 4 or 5, 6 hours just coordinating each individual training or service or survey. But I've never positioned it in the way that you were just saying. And I actually had an aha moment. And I appreciate what you just said, because I did just have an aha moment of, that is actually more time that people can spend serving their customer and serving their internal and external ecosystem. So thank you for that. That was actually a really helpful for me, a very helpful way of looking at it, and I've never done that way. So
Yeah, I'm happy to share it. I think about what's most important, and we all have different answers for that. But no matter what your answer is, it's likely to be people influenced. So as an organization, we have really no higher calling than to serve our customers, our community, our families, our coworkers. And I love the mindset of putting people first, because that tends to be a great buttress against some of the behaviors that can lead to unsafe decisions. You hear about how rushing leads to incident. Rushing is a big driver of incident.
almost unilaterally, people impatience.
It's an elephant in the room. But when your people are focused on, let's say, the main thing, which is people, when your employees are focused on that, they're less likely to take decisions that could have negative repercussions, because they recognize how valuable they are to the people around them. And that's a real highlighted point for me when I'm training. You'll hear me occasionally, and I know here at DSG they hear it quite a lot, but you'll hear me talk about the silent stakeholder, Mike. The silent stakeholder is every mom and dad, every husband and wife, and every son and daughter of our employees. For them, it's not a gosh darn, I hope they come home okay. For them, it's a mandate. They're expecting their loved one to be home and in as good a condition as when they came to work. Well, if you amplify that out, there's real benefit to us always being healthy, not just for our home life, but for our customers. Those hours add up. If you're on restriction, if you're away due to injury, that's less time you can help your customer. That means short staffing in your operation, which is a precursor to a rushing mindset. So there's a number of things that start to dovetail off when you fall short of that mission. I just mentioned that here because you'll find that I'm an advocate of the silent stakeholder, but we can really think of that through the lens of not just our personal relationships, but our professional ones as well.
Absolutely, it's actually such a fascinating lens. I was thinking the other day, I'm of the age. My son's 21 and my daughter is 16. And so I no longer am around little kids, like little tiny kids. Now, we've got people who work here that have them, and it's wonderful. And I love seeing the young families get married and get their first homes. And I've been fortunate enough to be, this is our 6th year. I've seen some people go through the whole journey from meeting their spouse to getting married to buying their first homes. And it's an honor for me to be part of that journey. And the reason I bring this up is I think about when you're taking care of an elderly person, like my parents are in their 80s, and when I'm walking with them or around them, I'm always a little bit on guard to see if they're stable, be ready to catch. When and on the other end of the spectrum, when you see these little kids that are learning to walk, you notice the corners of everything that you've never seen in your house before. Like you notice, it's like, oh man, that kid loses its balance. We better cover that corner. We better cover that edge. You're just looking around for hazards constantly that you've never seen before. And I recently had an epiphany, similar to what you just gave me as the gift of thinking of it through the lens. One of my folks were talking about how, you have hazards everywhere and people just walk right by them because they don't see them because they don't care. And they don't care because they don't have a vested heart interest in it. But if they had their baby that was wandering around, would you let your kid do what you just did? Kind of a question. Would you, if you were training somebody who was just coming in as an apprentice, would you let them, you know, change the electrical without lockout tagout? You know, even if oh, I've done it 100 times, I can. It's like, okay, you take a novice and you put them out there. You're going to let them do that? It's like, whoa, no, I'm not doing that. It's like, well, then just because you're lucky doesn't mean you're good, right?
You hit on something there that I feel is profound, and it's one of our core safety best practices. I want to take our audience back. I mentioned that there's several people listening in that have children, and for those folks, go back to that moment when your first child was born. I have two kids, and I'm thinking back right now to when my first child was born. There was a lot of anxiety on my end. I was holding this precious angel. It was my first time. I felt like anything I did could possibly harm this child. So I went through a period of anxiety. Uh, but I mentioned that because fast forward a month. So for our audience, take that moment when your child was first born, and then fast forward 30 days from every decision you're making has safety in mind for that child, to how you walk across the street, to how you hold them, to how you walk through doorways, to how you secure the seatbelt for your child. There isn't a decision that you're making that doesn't have safety as the first filter. The reason that's profound is for our safety leaders, they're well served to do that for their employees as well. Not to treat them as kids, but to have safety as the first filter in the decision making for them, because now you're seeing around the corner before you get to the corner. You're thinking about the threats before your associates are engaging them. And the best safety leaders do that. If For anybody on the call, if you're looking for a surefire way to get your TCIR down to a 1.0 or a 2.0, have your leadership take on the mission of having a safety first mindset. When they do that, there's just a lot of benefits that come: a lower incident rate, a lower injury rate, just happen to be two of them. But it's been my experience the best safety leaders take that philosophy and run with it.
It's so true. And the funny thing is that when you train your mind to be that way, and maybe this is just a nature versus nurture kind of a discussion, but to this day, I'll go on a trip with my kids and my wife, and 16 and 21, they're both driving. One of them can drink now as of last week. He's in college, an architecture student, and when we go towards the street and we're going across the street, I immediately kind of get between them and any oncoming traffic and make sure everybody's okay. To this day, they're adults. They are grown people, but you're always a parent. You're always looking out, and it will never change. And that's a wonderful thing. And I think that mindset in safety is also when you teach and train people to act that way, it becomes second nature over time, but you have to you have to be dedicated to it.
It's a practiced behavior. Having safety as your first filter in decision making doesn't come naturally for some, especially those who maybe have spent their whole life on the operations side or all their life with sales. So the goal really is to move that needle incrementally day after day. I like to say you can never have a day off in safety. Your mindset should always be on point with safety. But that's something that's real easy for me to say, having built my life on safety for many years. For a brand new associate, new to the industry, new to the business, perhaps they're new to the machinery they're going to use or the equipment that they're going to operate. This is a work in progress, and the goal is to build a strong foundation at the start and to foster that through a safety first mindset every day moving forward. And I'll ask an associate a year after they started, where do they feel their safety mindset is now compared to where they were on day one? And that really is truly a litmus test because if they say, well, I'm blown away by how much more I'm invested in safety and how much more I'm thinking about it, well, then you can point to all the people around them that help that person who's up. But if they come back with concerns or confusion or they're still not there, that identifies opportunities for coaching to help build out the system in that location because it's oftentimes not the individual that you're speaking to that's giving you that testimonial. It's the support that they have. So uh, I love to help others win. It's in my DNA to be altruistic. But if you want to have a safety first mindset, it does take practice. And it's not just you that needs to practice, it's all the people around you.
Well, it's funny you should say that, or interesting you should say that, because I think about other vocations that are truly life and death. When you're in the military, when you are a officer, when you are a firefighter, head on a swivel is one of those things they definitely ingrain. They are looking around at all times, whether they're on duty or off duty, whether they're, whether they're actually in a war scene or they're back at home. They are always looking around for, and there is a mindset to hazard awareness. And it's not, oh, I need 1901 to make sure that I'm in compliance. No, no, no. You are looking for things that are going to harm, and you're looking for the reason behind the 1901 or whatever the NFPA or whatever the thing is. It's not that we care that you know the reg. We care that you know why the reg is there, right?
And to your point, there's a reason why most former military and career military, they never sit with their back to an entrance.
Exactly. Uh-huh.
They want to be in a
Oh,
position
yeah.
to react, defend, and respond.
Yes.
So safety
Yes.
leadership is very similar in that regard.
It is. And safety mindset of the, not just the leaders, but also this team.
Yeah.
You want your team to be aware and conscious of hazards, because at the end of the day, you want to keep people safe. You have to be able to know what unsafe looks like, and hopefully not learn by watching somebody fall off a ladder or getting electrocuted. That's the thing. You never have to ask somebody twice if they're going to wear their fall protection if they've seen somebody fall off of a building. There is never that it never goes into anyone's head again. And let's hope that they don't have to have that moment to actually hit this. So let me ask you a different question, Mike. So do you at DSG, do you offer safety product? Like, do you sell safety product to your end customers? Like, fall protection or fire or any of these things? I know you do a lot of electrical and HVAC and other things like that, but do you do anything in the safety equipment side?
So we certainly sell PPE to our customer base. So there's safety products that we make available. One thing that I would like to see us do in the future is potentially offering safety training based services to be able to help them.
We can help you there.
My thought is a lot of the challenges that we face in warehousing, you face out in the construction field. They're just different types of threats. It's a different environment, but a lot of the same mantra and methodology and commitments all still apply. So I think there's an opportunity for us to be more supportive of our customers in the safety space beyond the products that we sell to them. But that's a work in progress. Those conversations are ongoing, and yeah, I'm happy that you created Yellowbird because I feel Yellowbird is in the space that I'm talking about here. So I have a feeling anybody else who's listening to this call, this is a great opportunity to plug Yellowbird and the opportunities that you make available because you have solutions that can help not just the businesses that are reaching out to you, but their customers and their stakeholders. So
It's amazing how many times thank you for that. That was very gracious of you, and I appreciate it very much. It's amazing how many times our customer will come to us, or our partner most of the time, and say, I need to do an assessment to find out what we need to supply or bring to a location. And they're actually using us for field assessments a fair amount where, we have this checklist or we have this thing because our safety people are very diligent and very detailed. And as long as you give them a very clear expectation of what success looks like, we execute better than most. And it's quite interesting because I'm finding folks that are in the product business that are starting to lean in towards services like field assessments, like quarterly, just quarterly trainings, offering, your DSG's branded trainings, safety trainings, and so forth. I mean, that's the cool thing about the platform is you can really kind of give people the curriculum that you would like them to offer. So, well, thank you for that. That was really gracious of you to bring that up. So, on this subject of next chapters, and as you look at how big was the company when you started? You've got 64 locations now. You've got 1,100 plus employees. How have you seen it grow? And then what is the plan? Are you familiarized with what the future looks like as far as expansion?
So when I started at DSG in 2004, we had 15 branches, around 300 employees. So we've grown about 400% since that time, and we're not done growing. In fact, I believe I have an email in my inbox on a recent acquisition that's in process here. So um, I think the key really for us is to have a safety platform that can scale. Uh, a number of the safety leaders that I've talked with in the past, I was fortunate enough to be the safety committee chairperson for the American Supply Association's National Safety Committee. And through that time, I was a part of that for about 8 years. And through that time, I met a lot of people in the plumbing and HVAC space, distributors, manufacturers alike, and they all face very similar challenges. And I've heard on more times than I can count how their system wasn't able to scale effectively to meet the pace of growth. And it created a number of hardships. So, uh, when I think about safety, I think about the need to make sure it can scale. In other words, do I have a replicatable process that isn't overly burdensome on somebody's time, where we can plug in a system that starts to set up a person for success and creates the environment for that branch to have success? So, uh, I learned pretty early on when we started doing acquisitions that we needed to have a process for onboarding them smoothly and into the system. But that process actually has also helped me in creating a really effective mechanism for training up new safety coordinators, for bringing branch managers and regional leaders up into their roles on safety. The beautiful thing is, as long as you're not building in a lot of duplicity,
Right.
if you're staying efficient with what you do, you can get a lot done in a short amount of time.
Yes.
Um, does this play out perfectly to the point where you have 1,000 facilities? That I don't know. That's to be discovered. I want to see that challenge come to my doorstep.
Sure.
But certainly it's working well now. It's worked well to get us to where we are. But
Yep.
but if I were to give one message to anybody else who's listening, who's in a process of growth, just make sure that your solutions are not only effective but scalable.
Right.
What you don't want to run into is having to backtrack or reinvent the wheel or spend a lot of time having to redevelop processes and procedures to fit the
Yep.
expanding landscape, because that's time that's taking away from you as a cheerleader, a teacher, a leader, a supporter. And every minute is valuable. I At the end of the day, I want to do everything I can to help our people win. And when I
Yes.
say that, to win on safety, to be safe, to have everybody go home
Yeah.
safe to their families,
Yep.
there's not a minute to waste. And the larger you get as an organization, the more precious that becomes.
You know what I've found recently? The best organizations that we've been working with recently have put a cadence of quarterly training um, in operation at every facility consistently, which is hard as Hades to do. It really is. It's hard to do that. We're able to help them do it. We can execute that. It's literally scheduled out. Like we will have, we're going to do forklift training once a quarter at every location. And anybody who was hired after the last one or is, in the gap zone, you're never more than 40 days away from your next forklift training. And we've been doing that kind of thing. But what it does is it puts what I always say, the safety leadership should be exactly what you just said. They should be the cheerleaders, they should be the program managers, and air traffic control, not flying the planes. It's like I can't tell you how many times I've been on conversations with people and they're like, "Oh, I've got to go because I'm running a training here, and then I'm going to go run a training there." I'm like, "Why are you doing the actual training? You should be running the training program." But it does. You're a X hundreds of thousands of dollars a year person, and you're going to spend 4 days traveling to do a training that you can we could do for $1,500. Like, it makes no sense to do that. But there is a mindset of, I do it better than anybody else. And I think programs can be designed that they should be designed that Mike Zhao or Mike Place don't have to be in the room for you to get trained or educated.
It's very possible that person could be the best at what they do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can be successful in pursuing that solely. It's sort of like to use a football nomenclature, there's a reason why your quarterback's not playing tight end. Each person has a role to the best of their ability. They should look to perform it.
Unless you're Patrick Mahomes, and then you do sometimes play tight end as well. But
Every once in a while, there's yeah, he's sort of a 1-on-1 type. But I think you hit on something that's important there because it's real easy to get caught up in the moment, in the day to day, and the
Sure.
same issues that lead to rushing in our warehouses and in our yards are the same things that can lead rushing for a safety professional. So it sort of gets back to one of my comments there when I was talking about scaling. To
Right.
scale effectively, you cannot do everything yourself. You won't
Right.
have the strategic vision to build out your program that way. It may work in the short term, but it's hard to do that long term because you'll find that your day is consumed entirely by day to day and you don't have any time to see what's coming. So I'd say it's a cautionary tale that you spoke to, Mike, that you've had some experiences with people in the past. And it can be hard to get out of because making a safety hire for small organizations can be a really big investment. When I think of DSG and how many people we have in our total sales, it's not as big of a hit to consider an investment in a safety professional as it is for a 1 or 2 or 3 branch operation that maybe has 50 employees.
Well, and you can leverage, taking, obviously I am the founder of Yellowbird, but whether it's us or some other mechanism, you can leverage resources if you design it to leverage resources. It's a mindset. Are you? And I am the worst, by the way, when it comes to my house. But at least I acknowledge it. I love to build and do things myself. It's cathartic for me. I recently put in a French drain on a walkway next to my house because when we have storms, it left this water run, and I'm like, oh, that's gonna damage stuff over time. And I probably spent 3 weekends doing that, digging it out in the whole 9 yards, and I certainly could have hired somebody to do it. But I'm at least aware, okay, I just spent way more time, money, and energy than if I would have just hired somebody to do that, and probably got equal. I'm not going to say better because I did a darn good job, but I'm going to say an equal outcome. But I did it for the cathartic reason, and at least if you acknowledge that. But we are a bunch of people in this industry that seem to think that they're the only ones who can build the French drain. And it's like, you can bring people in that are very qualified, and frankly, you need to trust. You have to trust your people. You have to trust third parties and internal people, or you're done.
I think that's a good point to bring up, Mike, in that if you're a safety professional, if you're leading safety for your organization, don't close your door to outside voices. Oftentimes, they can provide solutions that can help make you more efficient. Yellowbird, for an example, has a suite of services that helps to streamline perhaps what I can focus on. And, whoever your partners are, identifying what they're really good at and then saying, you know what, maybe I could do it 1% better than them because I have my tribal knowledge. I know everything about our branches and our people, but the time they're going to save me, even if it's 1% less, is going to give me a chance to be 5% better on this, and this. So I would say this safety at DSG would not be where it's at without folks like yourself and other partners that help us elevate.
I appreciate that. And, it's funny because I think coming from the world that you come from when training as part of your journey, it's not the only world you come from, but, you have to have a mindset of, how do I train a trainer? How do I empower people to use the tools that I'm creating to be effective? And is this the right person to be doing this type of a thing? Which I often ask, when we look at the safety coordinator roles and we look at these, often they'll put the superintendent on a site in a construction zone, run him through an OSHA 10, and now he's also the safety guy. But he's motivated by faster and budget. that is the number one thing, unfortunately. And often you should have somebody else that's kind of double checking to say, okay, let's be a little slower. It's okay to be a day late and have everybody be safe.
Profit over safety decision making is why OSHA exists. I mean, it was such a problem for so many years that in 1973, the federal government said, we have to have an agency that can get a handle on this because people are dying all over the place.
Yeah, it's so true. So shifting gears to your personal world, and then we'll wrap up for the. This is a fantastic conversation. Thank you again for having it with me. Um, on the personal side of your life, what are you? You mentioned football and you mentioned sports when you were growing up, and so one, do you still actively play any sport? And two, who are your teams and what do you follow?
So I do still actively play tennis. Both my kids are in tennis and track. So while they run, yeah, that's the definition of a missed opportunity.
Okay. Oh, I know Mike Schmidt. Sure, of course. Uh-huh. Yep. E- Eagles guy. All right. Love it. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. You know, a wise person once told me to learn to enjoy eating
Yes.
humble pie.
Yes.
Uh,
Yep. Good for you.
yes. That's
That's fantastic. I actually, you told that story, and I'll tell you, based on the math, we're exactly the same age. So I was born in 75. I just turned 50. I had those Tops baseball cards too. And I don't know if yours were Tops or some other, but I definitely, at the same time, I was an Angels guy because I was in Southern California and, went to my first ball games and such. And I grew up playing tennis. So I played tennis in high school, and now I'm a golfer. I play golf. You live in Scottsdale, you have to play golf. It's kind of the law. It's the law. I mean, I think that they would throw me out of the state if I didn't play golf.
that would be an open window. Do you want me to close the drape?
Little known fact that I was actually born with one hand, and so I play golf. I play golf with one hand, and I'm still a pretty decent golfer. And but what I love about it is exactly the same thing that you just said. Both of my kids will go out with me, and as I say to my wife, it's a very frustrating walk in the park, but I get to walk in the park. I get to be on the grass. I get to hit a ball around. I get to have a great conversation with my kids or my best friends or just some stranger, which, by the way, she thinks is insane because I do like to talk to strangers. Even though I was raised to not talk to strangers, I do enjoy getting a random twosome paired up with us and have those conversations. By the way, I love the fact that you are in North Dakota and that you are an Eagles fan through and through. I think that is fantastic.
There.
Yeah, I imagine so. But you know what? Stay true to who you are. I love that. Well, thank you, Mike, so much for joining me. This has been fantastic. I am very proud to be your friend, and I am proud to have had you on this podcast. And I wish you nothing but the best going forward.
DSG. I've just recently changed my chain of command from our chief human resource officer to our chief supply chain officer. So with new leadership, I I wouldn't call it a reset, but there might be a pause just for me to get my bearings with my new chain of command and things like that. When I talked when I talked with Carrie and Ed, I just mentioned to him that what we've talked about in the past may still move forward, or there might be other offerings you have, because you guys have a full suite of services. So from my standpoint, it's still
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of the Canary Report. If this conversation helped you reframe how you think about risk and safety, please do me a favor. Hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with somebody who needs to hear it. We're building a new category of safety and risk leadership, one that's faster and smarter. Leaders who aren't just empowered by tech, but whose wisdom is accelerated by it. To learn more about how Yellowbird's cutting-edge platform is empowering leaders to solve workplace safety and risk challenges faster, smarter, and at scale, visit goyellowbird.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Yellowbird pages to stay up to date. Until next time, lead with clarity, know first, and act fast.